everyone, this is Isaac here, and welcome back to me dunking on a franchise of movies meant for toddlers that isn't Paw Patrol. Last time, I talked about Trolls, and I said that it was one of two movies I'd consider the worst productions to come out of Dreamworks Animation, the other one being its sequel, Trolls World Tour. Now, as completely insane as this might sound, this is possibly one of the most important films in the history of cinema. Since it was released at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic and most movie theaters in the US had to close as a result, Trolls World Tour was released to streaming instead. And pretty soon, just about every movie that was supposed to come out in 2020 went to streaming. This got a bunch of theater chains really mad at first, but it all worked out in the end as the pandemic started to decrease in relevance and more box office hits came out on the big screen. And despite how gargantuan of an impact it had on pandemic-era cinema, the movie we got was pretty bad. And like I said before, I consider it tied with the first Trolls for the absolute worst film to come out of DreamWorks Animation. So let's talk about why that is. It's set sometime after the events of the first film, where Poppy, now the queen of the Troll Kingdom, discovers that there's other races of trolls representing other genres of music. However, the leader of the rock trolls, Queen Barb, wants to destroy every other music genre and have her own be the dominant one. Gotta love how this is only one of two animated movies from the 2020s with Nazi allusions that are about as subtle as a kick in the testicles. But to achieve her goal of a rock-only society, Barb has to collect 6 strings from each troll race to harness their ultimate power. So Poppy, Branch, and James Corden have to stop her from doing so. In other words, it's Avengers Infinity War for 6-year-olds. It's got a purple villain collecting 6 artifacts to enact a plan that basically amounts to a sort of genocide. It tries to have itself stand out by having some commentary on stuff like historic revisionism and the massive stranglehold pop has on the music industry, and I do think the idea of individual communities based on specific music genres is interesting. Sadly, it goes about it by being as bare bones and formulaic as possible, even having 2 third-act breakups, and another f***ing twist villain who's somehow still better than the one in Ruby Gilman. It has a message that's just the first movie's message about how happiness is inside you, but replace happiness with music, and some of its world-building choices are really confusing, like how it has a K-pop group. So does that mean that there's a Troll Korea? Oh yeah, and like the first Trolls, World Tour is still painfully unfunny, and it has a lot of song choices that'll only date it if anything. Seriously, who the hell thought it'd be a good idea to include Gangnam Style in this movie? And in addition to the movie's writing and humor being terrible, the characters still suck. Well, okay, I'll admit Barb had some of the very few tolerable moments in this film, but other than her, we got such memorable characters like an obvious ploy to sell more merchandise, an off-brand Grimace voiced by one of the worst actors of the current era, and, oh yeah, Poppy. Somehow, she's an even bigger dumbass here. Once again, the only reason why the plot can fully play out is because she decided to be a moron and try to be besties with an oppressive totalitarian dictator. Like, all her friends and even her own father tell her not to mess with Barb, and yet she still goes ahead with it because she's as dumb as a rock. God, this movie is awful, but like the first Trolls, I do have to give World Tour some credit and say that it does honestly have some really good animation. It does a great job reflecting the different music genres, and I love how the environments and textures look like fabric, in addition to there being a few neat looking scenes with 2D animation, but of course, while a good script can save bad visuals, good visuals cannot save a bad script. It's like trying to cover a turd with ice cream sprinkles. No matter what, at the end of the day, it's still a turd. So, in conclusion, Trolls World Tour is a cinematic disaster. In trying to make itself be like Infinity War, it removes everything good about that movie except for it having some great visuals, and the end result is just another movie that reinforces the stereotype that animation is just a genre meant for kids when it's clear that's not the case. And there's plenty of animated movies that make it abundantly clear that animation has its place in modern cinema. It's just too bad that in order to get to those gems, you gotta sift through a lot of trash, like this movie. 2 out of 10, #impeach Queen Poppy. And now, all that's left for me to do is to review Trolls Band Together. And yeah, it does look like it'll suck, so I look forward to that being the case. Anyways, thanks for watching this video, subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!